I want to be a writer, but my family is stuck in another century.
Writing isn't a job. I need you to do more.
Make a wish, beta.
Kiss a girl and get out of this dump.
Bruce is the direct line to all that's true in this shitty world.
Seriously, what does he know about our world?
Just living in a dump like this. There's something happening somewhere.
You should be listening to our music before you start getting confused and hating yourself.
I feel like this film, yes, it's a love letter to Bruce's music, but I feel like it's also a love letter to lyrics and lyrics in music and how lyrics and the words of a song can sort of change your life. And so let's start out there and just sort of what that experience was, kind of bringing this film out at Sundance and how that experience maybe changed your life. You know, Vivek. Start with you.
It was mad because you don't know what people are going to like. Like, you can hope that people will like something. You can, I guess you can hope for it, but you don't know. Like, there's never a certain. Like, I didn't know that there'd be a round of applause after the film. Like, you know, we could well have, you know, had the film and there just been silence. Like, do you know what I mean? Anything was possible at that moment. So when it did finish, and you started hearing, and then it turned into like, and then people started standing up. I was like that's mad.
It was a 5-minute standing ovation, wasn't it? Like no one wanted to stop.
it just felt so odd because you like, it's surreal because we just did this thing in England, and then Gurinder was like, "Oh, we're going to Sundance." I was like, "All right then." Cool, that's random, but all right. And then all of a sudden, we're here and did a lovely deal with New Line Warner Brothers, and they're backing us, which is amazing validation. Because you know, when I grew up, that's the logo you see on the Harry Potter films. Yeah, that's so weird.
That is bizarre.
Those are like my childhood films, and it's like a psychological sort of validation for me. That I never thought would be possible. I was saying to Sarfraz on the car on the way back, we were driving back to the airport at Salt Lake, and I was sitting there and I was like, how does this happen that you are a 47-year-old Pakistani man, we've got about a 60-year-old Punjabi woman and this 20-year-old brown thing, yeah, all of a sudden, like, people are liking us and people are liking what we've done and people are liking the work that we've made over in somewhere that's so far away. It was mental.
It was really cool. You know, Nell, this is such a exceptional film. I feel like, and to see, you know, to speak to what you were saying, Vivek, I feel like we've never seen a film like this. You know, and if you're going to kind of use a film that has Bruce Springsteen's music interwoven through it, you know, you almost expect it to be about a blue-collar kid from Jersey or something like that. And so it's such a remarkable story. What was sort of your the biggest thing that you learned from that helped you kind of learn who your character was and how to play her?
Well, as soon as I read the script, I identified with Eliza immediately. She was exactly the same as me when I was like 17, 16. Angry, political, like furiously energetic and hopeful at the same time. So I was very drawn to her immediately. But the general sort of uplifting, inclusive nature of the film and how, you know, it's not really about Bruce Springsteen or even about a boy in Luton. It's sort of a universal message, really, isn't it? About how music can help you overcome any problems you're having in life. It's about growing up. It's about falling in love for the first time and, you know, overcoming all your family problems. Mate. Yeah. Well, for me. But yeah, so those themes are really universal. And other than the fact that I was drawn to the character because she was basically me, they drew me to the script immediately.
And Aaron, what about you? What was sort of the biggest thing that helped, the biggest note that you got that helped you sort of figure out who this character was and the time and the setting?
The fact that he's a turban wearing Punjabi guy and I come from the similar background. So I didn't have to fetch too far for research. I'd obviously met him, but this is 20, 30 years on. So he's a completely different person now. So a lot of the research that I needed to do, I obviously asked him questions, but then I went back to my own family who have grown up in that environment and been Sikhs in a predominantly white area. So I didn't have to look too far for that.
Did you listen? Was there a particular song that you listened to from Bruce that sort of helped you kind of figure out the state of your characters?
Yeah, it was sort of intimidating to have to think, you know, I have to sit down and listen to this stuff, listen to the songs, you know, within the film as well as, you know, the rest of it, so I can get a glimpse of it. And so I did, and I started listening, and I thought, I'm not gonna like this, and I kept listening. I was like, and then I kept on listening, and then, quite like it was in the film, it sort of hit me, and I had a weird, incredibly cheesy epiphany moment, incredibly cliche as that sounds, and it was just odd because, you know, I was listening to very different music at the time, music personally where, you know, the lyrics weren't important, and you know, I liked a good tune. I was like, cool, great, and I started listening to these words, and I'm sitting there like, what is going on? And then I thought, you know what, maybe I've got to get back to me a bit. So I went and listened to some like chart music, and I was like, there's no meaning. And I had this weird sort of existential, like premature midlife crisis where I was there like, what's going on? Like, how have I not known about this, and why do I like this? Because it's absurd. Like, why would I like something like that? There's no reason that I should like that music, but it's the words, and his words are amazing. He's a poet.
This guy is incredible. You've never heard lyrics like his.
Is that Billy Joel?
Billy Joel? You try and raise your kids right, Jay.
He doesn't have lyrics. He has ammunition. Yeah. Whatever song, whatever mood you're in, there's a song for all of it.
Yeah.
And there's a way. His music is in a way a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And it really works.
No, it really is.
So yeah, and I found the same. I found the exact same thing. Once you become a fan,
you're there.
You're there for good.
Purpose of your visit?
I'm going to see Bruce Springsteen's hometown.
I can't think of a better reason to visit the United States than to see the home of the boss.
You know, at what point in your life did you realize that your relationship with Bruce Springsteen and his music is worth writing a memoir about?
Well, I mean, I was a fan since I was 16, but that was just, you know, my dad used to just say to me, why are you giving all your money to Bruce? You know, you're traveling around the world spending money that you don't have to go and see him. And then I became a journalist, and then a publishing company came up to me and said, you know, we like your work as a journalist, would you think about writing a book? I never really thought about writing a book. And I thought, well, how am I going to have 300 pages of something to write about? So I thought, well, what are my obsessions? And I thought, well, myself and Bruce Springsteen. So I thought, I think that I could probably spend the next year writing about. So it was at that point that I started writing the book. And as I was writing the book, there was a bit of me that was thinking, inside this, there is a film. There is something in this. And I thought the only person who could possibly do it would be Gurinder. And luckily we knew each other because we were friends, and she's a Springsteen fan as well. And so I sent it to her towards the end of that. And I said, you know, what do you think? And that's the beginning of the journey of the film.
And what did you think?
I thought it was great, obviously, being a Springsteen fan.
Yeah.
And I said to Sarfraz, I think there's definitely a movie here. What was interesting for me, though, was that he, like many first-time writers, he was really trying to protect his family while at the same time tell their story. And so there was, you know, that was interesting to me because I do the same, you know, in my work. And so I knew that the journey that we had to go on and that I had to take Sarfraz on was to go deeper and forget about himself and his own family and start thinking about a story and this character becoming someone else. And I think that gave him the freedom then to think about the possibilities and who the parents might be. So it's kind of inspired by Sarfraz's book and his life. And then we went forward to turn it into a great movie that, and initially a script that we were really hoping that Bruce Springsteen would like.
Well, I mean, that's the crux of this, right? So you're going to make this movie, you have to make it with Bruce's blessing.
Yes.
And so tell me how that happened.
So I said to him, this is great, it's a great book, but it's only going to happen with Bruce. Yeah. We have to get to Bruce. And The Promise was coming out, and I'd been invited to the premiere of The Promise in London. So I
That
said,
was a documentary on the making of Darkness on the Edge of Town.
yeah, and so Sarfraz was right, okay, let's go. So we both went like little fan kids, and we both stood on either side of the red carpet, and we were sort of waiting for Bruce to come, and we both had cameras so we could film each other with Bruce walking past us. And we were waiting and waiting, and there were cheers, and he was walking through. And then the most amazing thing happened. Bruce turned around and saw Sarfraz. Now, looking at Sarfraz, he's very distinctive looking. And if you're Bruce Springsteen at a concert and this kid keeps popping up at these concerts, you're going to notice him. So Bruce kind of recognised him and walked over to him and said, man, I read your book.
It was a beautiful thing. And at that point, when you write a book like this, you obviously hope that you would send it to him, but I hadn't sent it to him. I had no idea that he'd even seen it, and so I completely just lost it. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it,
At which point I ran over while he was losing it and went straight to business and said, Bruce, it's so great you've read the book, you love it, we want to turn it into a movie. I did Bender Like Beckham, so then I started being really uncool as well. And then he was standing there looking at the two of us, and I said, we really need your support to make this movie. And he sort of went, sounds good. Talk to John. And then John Landau was behind him, and Bruce walked on, and John went, what are you guys talking about? What's the book? What's going on? And then that was it. That was the beginning. We were in touch with Bruce and his managers.
But the thing also was like, it meant that when you're writing something like this, you're working like this, it doesn't really matter if you've got financiers on board. Ultimately, if Bruce doesn't like it, this ain't going to happen.
Exactly.
And so that's a big thing. That's an exam you cannot afford to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one guy.
Yeah, so we had to really work hard to tell a story that, was worthy of Bruce. And one of the things that I kept saying to Sarfraz, and because of course he has an encyclopedic knowledge of Bruce and every single thing he's ever recorded, we had to make the songs our own, and worked hard on making every song feel like Bruce had written it for us in the screenplay, and took ownership of it, really. And so by the time we'd finished and we sent the script to Bruce, I think Bruce was so blown away by this story of this kid who'd sort of made sense of his own life with all his words, Bruce's words. I think he just was charmed by it, and we were waiting for a reply, and 2 weeks went by. Sarfraz emailed me 1 million times during that period. Have we heard anything? Have we heard anything? And then finally we got a reply, and the word came back to us that Bruce said, I'm all good with this. And that was our green light.
And I think that, with Springsteen, he doesn't, he's at that position now. He can choose what he wants to do with his things. And I think my suspicion is that the reason he liked it is because it was not a film about how great he is. It's about how the power of his words and what they can do. And I think if you're an artist of any form, you want to try and create work that touches people and makes a difference.
Yeah.
And, I think he might have found it slightly flattering that a kid from what looked like a very different world to his had a very tangible connection to his music. And I think that's, because it wasn't a hagiography about him and it wasn't a biopic, it was showing this is what your words did to this character. And I think maybe that's what he liked about it.
But also the film is not just about Javid, it's about his family. And I think that's interesting because it's a window into a family like that that you might not know, but you realise that is as universal as yourself. And I think Bruce also really liked that cultural take. And also, there's other music. It's not just Bruce's music. Yeah. And in particular, there's Asian music. The dad listens to old, music by Muhammad Rafi, who was a big kind of Indian Hindi film star, playback singer. And then also the sister listens to Bhangra music, goes to what we had then were Bhangra daytimers. And so the music is the film has a very rich soundtrack. And so Bruce's music is contextualised within the world of what it meant to be British Asian in 1987, for that family. And I think that's what makes it different to it just being because people might think, oh, it's just about this kid and Bruce. It isn't. Yeah. It's about a lot more than that.
And also the central relationship, one of the central relationships, as you know, is about a kid and a dad.
Yeah.
Working class family. I mean, that's, I'm sure that's not that different from working class families in Jersey.
No.
And I think hopefully what the film shows is, the things we have in common underneath the things that look like they're different.